you know, what Keri experienced is even just making the decision that I'm going to be coachable, that I'm going to participate to the fullest level. Just deciding to do that in her first year, she went from, I think she did 9 transactions in her first year, and her sales were about 1.2 million, and she went to 4 million within 1 year. So congratulations, Keri.
Woo!
So normally I would preface a video like this and ask you to be listening for what are the salient points. In other words, you guys can tell this is not scripted, right? It's our producers, the videographer, is asking them open-ended questions. By the way, do you think I've had our videographers listen to Never Split the Difference? Learn how to mirror and label? What's the advantages of mirroring and labeling? Let me ask you this. What happens for you guys when the camera's put in front of you? What do you do? What do you tend to do? Freeze up, right? Yeah, well, they do too. And so the skill that he's learned, and I've coached him to develop, is learn how to mirror and label in such a way that it brings it out in them, right? Because he doesn't want to tell them what to say. He wants to ask them from their heart. That's why these videos come out so phenomenally, right? But what did you guys hear was the most important things about their interaction with Keri? Hold on, I'm going to bring the mic to you, Pam.
I feel like they trusted her. I mean, they not only had to sell a house, but they had to buy a house. And they had 2 mortgages at one time. They obviously bought before they sold. And she just provided that certainty for them. And they put all their trust in her. And she just did an amazing job.
Keri, hop up to the front, because you're absolutely right. Give her a hand. They trusted her. They trusted her. How does she build trust? How do you build trust?
It's funny, when I listed their home for sale, this was after they had bought. The market, it wasn't quite as busy as I thought it was going to be, and I was literally freaking the out inside, because by Sunday morning we had 0 offers. We had listed on a Thursday, and I called Cambria, like, what do I do? So internally, of course, I'm freaking out, but I've developed myself in such a way that it doesn't matter what's going on in here, that I always, it's like an on-off switch. I can deliver certainty to them, and they never know
Hang on a second.
Out that I'm having.
You said something that I just want to pause, because we have a lot of new people here. You said, I've conditioned myself so that. What does that mean? What do you mean by you've conditioned yourself?
There's a couple things. Most of you, the people who know me, know that I journal every single morning. So I journal what I'm grateful for. Or in a moment of total fear and uncertainty that I have internally, I pull out my journal and I start writing in it. Because when you are focused on a gratitude mindset and you're coming from that perspective, fear doesn't have the place to show up. So then if I'm coming from that perspective, then I'm not projecting onto my clients the uncertainty and the fear that I have that's going to run by default anyway. So why don't I work on every single day focusing on where my brain is, so that then the fear doesn't come up when I'm talking with my clients.
So let me ask you this. So you journal what you're grateful for. How often do you do that?
Every day.
Every day. How long does that take you?
10 to 15 minutes.
And where did you learn that? When was that habit reinforced?
What was the mastery course where we first became accountability partners? It was like 2.5 years ago, I guess.
So it's interesting. Now, let me ask you this. On a scale of 0 to 100, with 100 being like almost impossible as a human being to accomplish, right? Like going to outer freaking space, and 0 being very little effort at all, how difficult is that to journal what you're grateful for?
Some days it's like a 0 right now it's a 0 or a 1. And there are some days that it's like a 10. I mean, I just shared a Facebook or social media post on my business pages this morning about an incident that occurred this weekend where because I'm in the process of a lot of transition in my life, and I totally, completely fell apart emotionally. And so a friend of mine said, okay, tomorrow when you journal, you're not going to journal about anyone else. You're going to journal about yourself and what you're grateful for within yourself. And that was pretty tough, to look at myself and really think, what about myself am I grateful for, not someone else? So that one was definitely a 10 or maybe even a 20 because I put it off. I put it off for a couple of hours until it was the very last minute. But even still, once I got going, it was so easy for the words to flow. And I found it very shocking that I naturally was just able to look at what I'm grateful for within myself.
Let me ask you another thing. So journaling, and you really embraced that 2 years ago, and I know that you got exposed to that in the mastery class that we did, which was 8 weeks together, and the assignment was every day to journal and journal what you're grateful for, right? That was the assignment, and you took that on and continued it. You also learned that on Unleash the Power Within, a Tony Robbins event that you went with us on. I want to transition a little bit because one of the other things that you made a decision 2 years ago to get consistent on was to do your videos. Post videos at least a couple times a week. One of the things that makes video all the more engaging is one word: authenticity. Let me ask you this. How much easier is it for you to access authenticity when you're doing the daily conditioning called journaling what you're grateful for? How much easier is it for you to tap into that level of authenticity?
Super easy, because it's now a part of who I am. It's not a thing that I'm doing. It's a brand. It's part of my brand. This is how I show up on social media. This is how I show up in the world. This is just who I am. So it's not a function of what I'm choosing to do now.
Right. Now it's a
habit. And it's not even a habit. It's a lifestyle, because that's what. It's like when you said doing something every day for 65 days, it actually becomes a lifestyle at that point. So this is now a lifestyle. It isn't a habit that all of a sudden I'm just going to fall out of doing. It's part of who I am.
So here's the thing, guys. First year, right, she gets into the business, struggles a little bit, but really embraces coaching, really embraces being involved in this culture, really embraces doubling down on doing the 5 or 6 things that we share with you guys is the most important thing to do to ensure, look, the stats are 87% of agents leave the business within 3 years. That's a lot of time, money, and effort to put into something and then leave. Why not invest in that first couple of 3 years building your momentum, building the skills such that, you know, what Keri experienced is even just making the decision that I'm going to be coachable, that I'm going to participate to the fullest level. Just deciding to do that in her first year, she went from, I think she did 9 transactions in her first year, and her sales were about 1.2 million, and she went to 4 million within 1 year. Then she stayed at that 4 million, just under 5 million mark for the next 2 to 3 years. However, in beginning of 2019 is when you did the mastery class. 2019 is when you went with us to Unleash the Power Within. She decided, I'm going to double down on my EQ. Emotional intelligence. Double down on my ability to get out of my own way and serve my clients at the greatest level, right? And what happened with her sales? She went from 4 million to what? You remember I showed you guys the slide 2 weeks ago? Just over 10 million. She'll likely do in the neighborhood of 16 million this year.